The views and opinions expressed on the following program are solely those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Nevis Broadcasting Company Limited or its advertisers.
Good evening, listeners, and welcome to another edition of On the Mark. It's a beautiful Wednesday evening here in Queen City, Nevis. It is the 22nd day of April 2020, and of course, it's another edition of the On the Mark program on a beautiful Wednesday evening from Queen City, Nevis. Let me say good night to all of our listeners here in the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis, across the entire region, and of course, those joining us in the diaspora via the World Wide Web. And of course, I am not the regular host tonight. I am Eric Evelyn, sitting in for the regular host, the Honorable Mark Brantley, Premier at Nevis, who couldn't be here tonight. And of course, I'm extremely delighted and very pleased to sit in for the host, the regular host, the Honorable Mark Brantley. Of course, we know that when the Honorable Mark Brantley is not available, that some of us would also chip in and host for the Honorable Mark Brantley. And of course, I'm pleased to be here tonight, this evening. Of course, we know we are living in some very strange and unprecedented times. And of course, Honorable Mark Brantley has been under a lot of pressure. He has been extremely busy. So have been all of us in cabinet over the past couple of weeks. And of course, we have been extremely busy because we are trying our utmost to respond in a very positive way to what has been happening with regards to the worldwide COVID-19 pandemic. And I dare say that I think that we here on Nevis, we have been doing exceptionally well. Of course, we've been getting some fantastic leadership by the Honorable Mark Brantley. And of course, all of us in cabinet are working overtime to ensure that all of us here in Nevis are comfortable. And of course, we know that this pandemic is creating some challenges for a lot of people, and we are doing our utmost to make sure that all of us here in Nevis are comfortable and we are weathering the storm. And we just want to assure you, of course, every opportunity we get, we want to assure you that we, the members of the Nevis Island Administration, the CCM-led Nevis Island Administration, we are with you throughout this crisis. We were with you before, we are with you throughout, and we'll be with you after. And I do believe that with God's help and with the prayers of the multitude, that we will come out of this crisis on top, and we will weather the storm exceptionally well, as we have been doing. At the top of the show, let me just do a little bit of housekeeping. Of course, we normally at the top of the show extend some greetings, and I want to extend some birthday greetings to a couple persons. I want first to say birthday greetings. I want to shout out to our very own from Vaughan Radio, Shamika Budgeon. She's celebrating her birthday today. Shamika, happy birthday. I hope you're having a fantastic day. I know these are strange times, but I hope you've had a great day so far. I heard you on the radio today. It means that you were working for your birthday and you sounded pretty happy. So I hope you've had a wonderful day so far, Shamika. Enjoy the rest of your day. I also want to say, extend some birthday greetings to a lovely lady up there in Beach Road. Her name is Mrs. Marjorie Simmons. Mrs. Simmons, I understand that today is your birthday as well, and I want to extend to you birthday greetings. I hope you've had a wonderful day so far. And Mrs. Simmons is such a wonderful, fantastic lady, always smiling, always has an encouraging word for anyone who she comes in contact with. And those of us who know Mrs. Simmons knows her well, that she's a fantastic cook. And you know she cooks very well. She's a boss at making conky and johnny cake and so on. She's always in the kitchen. And at her age, she's still always in the kitchen. Mrs. Simmons, I hope you took a break today. And I hope the children treated you like a queen, the queen you are. So I want to extend birthday greetings to you, Mrs. Simmons, and very, very happy birthday. Hope you had a great day. Enjoy what's left of your special day. And children, I hope you're continuing to treat her extremely well. I also want to go into Brown Hill to my cousin there, Mrs. Doris Walwyn, at the top of the hill. And I understand today is your birthday as well, Doris, and I hope you having a lovely day as well. Doris, of course, we know is always a live wire, and I know she's a little down in terms of her age now, but I want to say happy birthday to you, Miss Walwyn. I know that your children love you very much. It's a very close-knit family there on the hill, the Walwyn and the Tyson family, and I know they would have treated you very, very, very well today. So a very happy birthday to you, Doris Walwyn, as well. And I want to say a special good night, belated wedding anniversary greetings to my very good friend Vanita and Carlos Walters there in Clegot. They would have celebrated their wedding anniversary a couple of days ago. Hope you had a fabulous day, Vanny and Carlos. And may God continue to bless you with good health and strength and many more years together. I understand that today is Administrative Professionals Day as well. Of course, today is lockdown in St. Kitts and Nevis, so administrative professionals have been home. And most of them have been home for quite some time now, for the past couple of weeks. Most of them have been working from home. Some of them are still going into the office. And I want to say a very happy Administrative Professionals Day to all of you, irrespective of your being locked down at home, that you had a wonderful day. I'm just going to change gears for just a bit now, and I just want to extend some condolences to my cousin Damien Pemberton and Shavon Fraser. I think most of us would know that they would have lost their little princess, Kiara Pemberton. She would have passed away in Jamaica sometime last month because of what we know, because of the COVID situation, the pandemic. The funeral has been delayed. Well, our little princess Kiara will be laid to rest on Friday. The funeral service will be there at the Amos Chapel in Charlestown. And I know that Damien and Shavon and the rest of the family, I know it's a very, very, very difficult time for you. To lose a little girl at the age of 11 is not easy. But I want to say that our prayers continue to be with you. We want you to be strong at this point in time. She was a very brave little girl. She fought hard. And she had a long battle with illness. And she would have fought valiantly. And, of course, we were very proud of little Kiara. And as I said, she'll be laid to rest on Friday. So Damien and Shavon and the rest of the family, take heart. Our dearest condolences, our deepest condolences to you. And of course, anyone who may not be feeling well, anyone else who is under the weather, we extend condolences to you as well. We want to say good night. Of course, I always say good night to the folks who are in the hospital. Those who may be ill, not feeling so well, whether you're in the hospital or whether you're at home, we want to say a special good night to you, and we hope that you're going to feel much better in the coming hours, in the coming days, in the coming weeks. So we say good night to you as well. And of course, as I said, we're living in some strange and unprecedented times. And for the past few weeks, for On The Mark, On The Mark has taken a different twist. Of course, we know that On The Mark is normally hosted by the Honorable Mark Brantley. He has been hosting it for a number of years now. And of course, we always say that easily it is the most widely listened to talk show in St. Kitts and Nevis and probably throughout the Eastern Caribbean, maybe throughout the world as well. And normally sometimes it has a political twist. But for the past weeks, we have decided to tone down. The Premier has decided to tone down, and justifiably so. Of course, we've been going through the pandemic crisis that is worldwide. This is something, of course, we know about the novel coronavirus, COVID-19, that was started in Wuhan, China, all the way in Wuhan, China, in December of 2019. And in a very few short months, it has gone through the entire world. It has enveloped the entire world, and it is now a worldwide pandemic. And who would have thought that we would have been experiencing this thing at this point in time? Of course, when 2020 started, everybody thought, well, 2020 is the year for us. We were hearing about 2020 vision. People had so many plans to, and there were so many things to happen in 2020. And as I said, 2020 was supposed to be the year. And this has changed everything. It's practically unbelievable what we're seeing happening in the world today. Who would have thought? Who would have thought that the big cities like London and Paris and all those places are totally closed down? Coming here tonight from Gingerland to Bath Village, I met one vehicle on the road. One vehicle. And that says that our people in Nevis are obeying the orders. It's a lockdown day, and I'm happy that I met one vehicle only tonight. And normally, once you're coming here to Vaughan Radio, between 7:30 and 8, you're going to meet a lot of vehicles on the road. And as I said, I met one vehicle. I think that was in the Chickenstone area. And after that, I didn't meet another. And so I want to commend the persons here in Nevis for doing what you're told to do, and we hope that we'll continue to do this as we continue to fight this COVID-19 pandemic, as we continue to fight the virus. As I said, I believe St. Kitts and Nevis will come out like champions. And so because of the COVID-19, things have changed here on the On The Mark show for the past couple of weeks. I'm sure we would recall vividly that a few Wednesdays ago, the Honorable Mark Brantley would have invited our religious leaders from all denominations to call in, and oh, what a show that was. That was extremely touching, it was very timely, and I think the Premier would have gotten 99.9% for that show. I mean, persons from even overseas were saying what a touching and inspirational show that was. And after we would have had that, of course, all the other shows would have been dedicated primarily to COVID-19. As a matter of fact, that is what everybody's talking about now. Every time you turn on the television, the only thing on the news is COVID-19. When you turn on the radio, the only thing you're hearing is COVID-19. And as I said, we are living in unprecedented times now, and of course, things must change. And that is why the On The Mark program would have changed. Of course, the Premier, every time he comes to On The Mark, he keeps saying, listen, we're going to leave the politics aside for now, because this is something that all of us must fight head on as one people. And I must give credit to the Honorable Mark Brantley for staying the course, for staying focused, for staying calm, for ignoring all of the political garbage that continues to be spewed out there, irrespective of the fact that we are going through a crisis, of course, that demands focused leadership. And that is what we have. That is what we have in the Honorable Mark Brantley. That is what we have in your CCM-led Nevis Island administration. And that is exactly what we are going to continue to do. And so let me just give you an indication. Of course, we have been doing a lot of things. We've been bringing a lot of information to the public since this crisis would have started. And in terms of what is happening worldwide, I'm just going to give you a little situation report in terms of what the situation is out there in the world. And then we're going to focus a little bit on Nevis. We're going to focus a little bit on what we're doing as an administration in terms of responding to the pandemic. And of course, you're going to get an opportunity to call in as well. This is a show that we always invite your calls, we invite your comments, your suggestions, your recommendations, and so you will get an opportunity to call as well. But before I open the lines, let me just give you an indication as to what the situation is as of 3 o'clock, as the situation was as of 3 o'clock this afternoon. And this coronavirus, this COVID-19, it has, we've had over 2.5 million confirmed cases, 2,614,040 confirmed cases as of 3 o'clock this afternoon. We've had 706,336 recovered cases, and unfortunately, we've had 181,235 deaths worldwide. Now, trust me, that is a lot of people dying. And the sad part of this crisis is that persons are dying. Families are not getting a chance to say goodbye to their loved ones. Families are not getting a chance to have a proper burial of their loved ones, and that is so heartbreaking. Sometimes when I turn on the television and it's just so depressing. Sometimes I just have to turn the television off. I'm serious. It's very, very heartbreaking and distressing. And 181,235 deaths from the coronavirus. Thank God, and thankfully here in Nevis, we have been spared by the mercy of God. Of course, God is merciful to us. And I think that the steps that have been taken by the government in St. Kitts and Nevis, and of course by the Nevis Island administration, we have been able to weather the storm well. And so for Nevis, as of 3 o'clock this afternoon, we have in quarantine, we have 44 persons. We have 83 that have been tested. We have negative results being 60. We have 4 confirmed cases. We have 19 pending results. We have 4 cases that are isolated. Of course, the persons who have the virus must be isolated, and those 4 persons have been isolated. And we have released from quarantine, we have 167. So I think Nevis has done well so far. It has been quite a few days well that since we have had a confirmed case, we're hoping that the 19 pending results that are out there will all come back negative. That is our hope, and that is we're going to hope and pray and claim it in God's name that all 19 will come back negative. And so that is the situation as it is worldwide as well as in Nevis as of 3 o'clock this afternoon. And as I said, since the pandemic would have started, we have responded, and we have responded exceptionally well, apart from the fact that the On The Mark program would have taken a different twist over the past weeks. We've also seen the Honorable Mark Brantley. He's now on Von Radio on a different program on Sunday afternoons from 4 until 5:30. So the Honorable Mark, there's always an update. There's always an update when it comes to the COVID pandemic. And so the Honorable Mark Brantley is here every Sunday. He has been here every Sunday for the past couple of Sundays. He'll be here on Sunday coming, and he'll be here every Sunday until this pandemic goes away. And he'll be here on Sunday from 4 to 5:30. And of course, he's here to make some remarks, to give some statements, to give some updates, and of course, always ready to answer your questions. Because in these times, there are always more questions than answers. There are always a lot of questions. And so he will be here on Sunday, and he'll be here every Sunday. Before I go any further, I forgot to mention a little earlier that when I was greeting folks overseas, I forgot to greet Ruffa Warner there in Maryland, Ruffa and his wife Janet. I understand that you all are both under the weather, so we just want you to know that we're praying for you, and we hope that you're going to have a speedy recovery. That's Ruffa and Janet Warner there in Maryland. So to you and the rest of the family, you are in our prayers. And of course, as I said, we have been responding to what has been happening worldwide and what's happening here in St. Kitts and Nevis. Of course, we know that we've had a state of emergency now since late March. we've had that state of emergency for 21 days, and then we would have gone to the federal parliament last Friday, and then to the Nevis Island Assembly this past Saturday, so that we here in Nevis could do our bit to ensure that the state of emergency is in good standing here on the island of Nevis. We know that this is the era of litigation, and this is the era when people always try to find something, a loophole somewhere. And so we wanted to make sure that we were doing the right thing, and that is why we had to go to Parliament this past Saturday and pass that extension for the state of emergency. And of course, we know that it was late notice, and of course we would have apologized for that, but we did what we had to do. Of course, there's a lot has been happening with regards to the Ministry of Health. They would have launched their Facebook page. We're getting daily updates from the National Emergency Operations Center daily. That takes place in St. Kitts, and of course here in Nevis as well. We have our Nevis COVID-19 Emergency Operations Center twice weekly update as well, that comes on every Monday and Thursday. And of course we can always continue to salute the folks who are part of that COVID task force, Dr. Judy Nisbet, Mr. Brian Dyer, all the other members of the task force who have been doing yeoman service. They've been doing a tremendous job, and it's because of the fact that they have been out there and been so proactive and doing such a tremendous job here in Nevis and in the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis, why I thought we would have kept COVID-19 at bay for so long. And now that it is here, now that we've been having confirmed cases, I still think that we have been doing exceptionally well. And as I said, I'm going to be opening up the lines, but just before I open up the lines, I just want to remind members of the general public, because these are the times when we have to keep reminding persons. No matter how many times you say things on radio or on television, persons will continue to call, and persons will continue to want things clarified. And so I just want to remind members of the general public that the federal government and the Nevis Island administration, we have responded in a very positive way to the crisis. We know that people are going through some tough, very difficult, very challenging times, and we just want you to know that we are here with you. We are in this thing together. We are in this thing together, and it is called we are in this thing together, and why God is blessing us so, and why we will come out like true champions. Of course, the Prime Minister, Dr. Honorable Timothy Harris, would have announced a stimulus package, which would have included from the banks, the moratorium on loans, and of course it includes the Development Bank, it includes the Nevis Cooperative Credit Union. And even though that would have been announced so long, and that is why I say we need to keep repeating things, because persons are still asking questions, and some persons are still not clear as to what this means. Now, the moratorium is for persons who have been affected, directly affected by COVID-19. And irrespective of the fact that it is there for persons who have been directly affected by the COVID-19, you who have been affected, you need to go into your banker and discuss it with your banker. It's not automatic. It is not automatic because the banks would not know those who are affected. So if you are affected, you ought not to just sit at home and say, well, I'm not going to pay my mortgage this month, and then the bank would not know whether or not you've been affected. So you need to go in and discuss it with your banker. And of course, I would advocate that persons, even those who may be affected, and you may have the resources to pay, continue to pay. Because after the moratorium, you will still have that deficit to pay. So if you are at a stage where you are financially able to pay during the moratorium, I would advise you to pay. I know government workers have been asking about it as well, but you have not been affected, and so I would advise you to pay. Do not go in and discuss this with the banks. Please pay while you can afford. And of course, we know that Social Security have come on board in a very huge way to partner with the government in terms of assisting persons who have been affected, and they have decided that they're going to be giving $1,000 to persons, so those who have been affected, whether you are full-time or part-time employee, or whether you are self-employed and you are paying your contributions. Let me make it clear, because a lot of persons who are not paying Social Security contributions, persons have come to believe, and some persons have been led to believe, some persons have been deceived into thinking that everybody in St. Kitts and Nevis qualifies for the $1,000. It is absolutely not so. If you were not working before, if you have not been making Social Security contributions, you do not qualify for the Social Security package. And so, persons who have been affected, who have lost their income totally, will be getting $1,000 every month for the first 3 months, first instance. And then persons who are making less than 1,000, if you're making whatever less than 1,000, Social Security will top that up. So if you have reduced hours in the hotel sector, for example, and you're getting $500, Social Security will give you an extra $500 just to top up that, so you can get to $1,000. And once again, I want to remind persons that if you're not paying Social Security contributions, you will not be eligible for that package. Here in Nevis, apart from what has been announced federally, because a lot has been announced federally, but of course here in Nevis we have put in our little bit as well. And so here in Nevis, I can remind you that property tax payments for the period June to September 2020 will be deferred. Water payments for persons laid off over the period April to June 2020 will be waived. Persons who have been laid off, who are on reduced hours, and of course you can apply for the social services. You can apply to the social services for some assistance in terms of food vouchers and so on, and we've been doing a lot of that. And you can also benefit from the $500 poverty alleviation program as well. In terms of NEVLEC, they have chipped in as well, and our NEVLEC will defer electricity payments for hotels, restaurants, and other businesses directly affected by this pandemic, and will reduce electricity bills by 50% for all workers laid off for an initial period of 3 months from April to June 2020. I must also add as well that the Nevis Housing and Land Development Corporation, the NHLDC, will waive all payments to the corporation for those homeowners paying the corporation for an initial period of 3 months from April to June 2020. Good news as well from the health sector. The hospital and related fees for anyone sick from the coronavirus will be waived. So if there's anyone who is affected by the coronavirus and you have to go to the hospital, you will not have to pay any fees. Those fees will be waived. And of course we know that since we are hit by the pandemic, we are spending a lot of time and spending a lot of energy and devoting a lot of our attention to agriculture. Because we know that after the pandemic started, everybody was a little bit worried as to whether or not the containers will be coming from Miami, whether or not we'll be getting our food on a daily basis. And of course, it is teaching us that we need to spend more time and energy and effort in the agricultural sector. We need to ensure that we have better food security. And so, of course, if there comes a time when the containers cannot come, we here in Nevis, we here in the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis, we should be able to feed ourselves. And so we have some incentives for our farmers as well. And so registered farmers will not be paying for water for 6 months. Let me repeat that, 6 months, April to September 2020. Registered farmers will be provided with seed and seedlings for food crops from the Department of Agriculture for 3 months, April to June. And of course, our backyard farmers, you're also getting seeds and seedlings as well. And you need to take advantage of that. That's from April to June. And our fishermen, you are not forgotten, because registered fishers will be provided with fish pot wire at a 50% reduced rate, with the first roll free over the next 3 months from April to June. And so we here in the Nevis Island Administration, we have been doing what we can. In terms of the abattoir, we are waiving the fees for registered livestock farmers for the period April to June. All fees on plowing and preparation of land for farming will be waived over the period April to June. And of course, those of you who may not have heard these, I'm repeating them for the benefit of those who did not hear in the past. And of course, the government will at some point in time as well provide free labor when they can do so to assist some of our farmers. And of course, as I said, we continue to work extremely hard here on the island of Nevis. Whatever we can do, as the old people would say, to stop the gap that is there, we are doing. I must also remind members of the general public, I'm sure you would have heard it, that the announcement was made last week that Culturama 46, Culturama 2020, Culturama 2020 has been cancelled, or Culturama 46 has been postponed. So when we have Culturama in 2021, that will be Culturama 46. And so it has been postponed from the 23rd of July to the 4th of August 2020 until the July the 22nd to the 3rd of August 2021. Now, of course, as I said, we have been doing things differently here on the island of Nevis. The cabinet of the Nevis Island Administration, we normally meet every Wednesday because of the fact that we're trying to lead by example. We are trying to do our social distancing. We decided we were going to meet virtually, and so we would have met virtually. The cabinet of the Nevis Island Administration met virtually yesterday, and we would have made certain decisions, and the Premier would have responded, and I know he has been keeping everybody abreast of what has been happening, and he would have done a statement here on the Eastern Caribbean's Powerhouse earlier today. We will now be listening to that statement. Just before we listen to that statement, I would have done a promo with regards to social services about a week and a half ago as well. So we're going to listen to that promo, and then we're going to listen to the statement by the Premier, the Honourable Mark Brantley, and after that we're going to open the lines.
How can I stop my heart from breaking?
In these very challenging times, we at Social Services take this opportunity to assure you that we continue to provide quality service as we have always done. Our meals program continues, and we are facilitating primary caregivers for the sick, elderly, and housebound. During this unprecedented period, we also offer you our counseling service as we keep you emotionally and mentally stable. Our counselors can be reached at 664-7269 or 665-9565. For general inquiries, please call 665-2501 or 664-9670. I salute the Director and her staff at Social Services for your tremendous efforts at this time. Nevisians, residents, rest assured that we at Social Services are with you and will stay with you as we weather this crisis together. To you, COVID-19, we will have the last word, because we will win this battle, because the battle is not ours but the Lord's. When it's all over, we will rise, and rise even stronger together.
We shall rise again.
We've done it before, now we can do it once
We
again.
shall rise again.
Little bit of effort from our family and friends.
My brothers and sisters, I come yet again to update you briefly on where we are now on Nevis in this fight against the deadly coronavirus. It is a fight for our very survival as a people. It is a fight that we must win. It is a fight that we shall win. We have thus far been blessed by Jehovah God that we have had only 4 positive cases of the virus in Nevis, and that all 4 of our brothers and sisters are in good health. We have been further blessed that we have had no new cases in Nevis for the past 15 days, and that of 64 test results obtained thus far, 60 have been negative. There are some who might mistake God's grace and mercy towards the Nevisian people as pure luck. Some may even be made arrogant by it and seek to let the bells ring out across the hills and valleys of our island that Nevis has won the war against Corona. As Premier of Nevis, I and the cabinet that I am privileged to lead will not make such mistakes. We thank Almighty God for his abundant kindness to us and will continue to be guided by the advice of our COVID-19 task force here on Nevis. We have made some gains, to be sure, but we must avoid the mistakes made elsewhere and continue relentlessly to wage war on this disease until in God's good time we can truly declare victory. As we continue to mandate social distancing and seek to ensure that we have no more confirmed cases of COVID-19 in Nevis, my cabinet has determined that the offices of the Nevis Island Administration shall remain closed, save for specific offices whose functions are considered essential and which are able to function and enforce physical distancing requirements. Public servants remain on call and will be advised by their permanent secretaries and department heads as we move forward. We understand that our businesses and construction sites are anxious to reopen and have in some cases been allowed to reopen on restricted curfew days. I urge our people to exercise maximum caution. I know you want to earn $1, but that dollar will be of no value to you if you lose your life. If you can continue to stay at home for a while longer, then do so. If you must open your business, then please, I beg of you, wear a mask. Ensure that you practice physical distancing and good hygiene, requiring customers and employees to wash hands frequently or use hand sanitizer with at least 70% alcohol content, and that you disinfect your places of business and work areas continuously. I am aware that hundreds of Social Security relief checks have been issued as of Monday past, and I urge our people to be patient as we seek to satisfy commitments made to those most affected by this pandemic. I thank the Social Security Board, its management and staff for their commitment to the people of Nevis. To continue to show leadership on physical distancing, my cabinet has utilized technology to conduct cabinet business and has implemented virtual meetings using available technology. At our meeting, convened yesterday, Tuesday, 21st April 2020, we continued the discussion on how we must recalibrate the Nevisian economy for the short to medium term during this ongoing pandemic. In this regard, we shall seek to forego some capital projects and focus resources on agriculture to ensure greater food security, the construction sector, financial services, and the small business sector. We shall also reallocate greater resources to social services to strengthen our social safety net for the most vulnerable members of our community. We recognize the pain that this crisis has caused our people. We recognize that many have lost their jobs and that the loss of income has made it difficult for some of us even to ensure that we have food to eat. I share the pain and anguish of our people. While none of us is responsible for this tragedy, we understand that we have a shared responsibility to respond. Brothers and sisters, we are in this together, and working together, I know we shall overcome. In a show of solidarity, therefore, with our people, the ministers of the Nevis Island Administration have all agreed to a pay cut of 10% for the next 3 months, starting in May 2020. In my case, I have since last month foregone my salary and benefits in full, and shall continue to do so until we are past this crisis. members of cabinet are not all in the same financial position. Given the demands on them to sustain their own families and still assist constituents, I believe that this gesture demonstrates in a tangible way that we are indeed in this together. In addition, I have, with the assistance of my colleague ministers, deployed personal resources to provide $13,500 worth of groceries each month for the next 3 months to the most vulnerable across our island. We shall shortly provide details of how persons can apply, and we invite other members of the community at home and abroad to join us in this effort to ensure that no family in Nevis goes hungry in these difficult times. This corona crisis has tested us as Nevisians in a way that we have not seen in decades past. It has brought great suffering on our people. However, in his own way, Jehovah God has used this crisis to remind us of our need to be disciplined and responsible, our need for family, our need for community, our need for the church, our need for each other, and most of all, our need for his love, guidance, and protection. This crisis has brought out the very best of the Nevisian spirit and has reminded us of our shared humanity. We cannot, we must not lose sight of the valuable lessons that this pandemic has taught. As I end, I wish once again to thank members of Cabinet for their unwavering commitment to the people of Nevis. I thank Dr. Julie Nisbet and the members of the COVID-19 Task Force for their exceptional leadership and advice. I thank our frontline workers in healthcare, security, social services, water, electricity, garbage collection, supermarkets, banks, pharmacies, and all those unsung heroes who have put themselves at risk to provide for us in this time of national crisis. Lastly, I thank our church leaders for their unceasing prayers for the delivery of our island and our people. Brothers and sisters, may we continue together to fight this battle, and may we be able one day to look back and say that in our darkest hour, our God did not forget nor forsake us. Nevis, I love you. Thank you, and God bless you.
Thank you very much, Premier Brantley, for that address. Very sober, great tone, very compassionate there. And I'll be opening up the lines now. There are persons out there, I'm sure, who'd want to call. If you want to call from overseas, just to check in to see how we are doing here in Nevis, and just to give us an update as to what is happening wherever you are at this point in time. Anyone here in St. Kitts and Nevis wanting to call in, give us an update, to call in to find out anything, to clarify any information, you are free now to call. Our lines are open. 869-469-1616-1700. We have someone on the line. Good evening, you're on the mark.
Good evening, Mr. Honorable Evelyn.
Good evening, sir. How you doing?
I don't know if I'm better than you, but I'm good enough.
I hope you're staying safe.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
I am concerned about, from an education point of view.
Yes.
I heard some weeks ago something about CSEC
Yes.
examination being deferred until July, but I tried to Google it and I still couldn't get a handle as to what's going to be taking place in terms of that, knowing that schools are going to be closed for some time.
Okay. That is a very good issue to raise, and I'm sure that our persons from education, our education officials are listening, and I would encourage, whether it will be the Minister of Education, Minister Liebert, or whether
Minister Barrett.
the PEO or the PS, somebody from education. I'm sure somebody from education would be listening, and so we will await their call to clarify what is happening with regards to education.
Yeah,
I know.
we need to know
Yes,
where we are going to stand in the timeline.
certainly. Because I did hear the PEO at one of the briefings here in Nevis, and she was talking about what is going to be happening for CXC, and she was actually encouraging the students here on Nevis to kindly do the virtual lessons and to log on when they're supposed to be logged
Yeah,
on.
well,
know that she
I
said
know
a
they're
program.
all into that.
Right.
We
Okay.
have directed them that way.
Fantastic.
But in terms of the timing,
Yes.
as to when we need to get better information from
Good.
CSEC itself.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much, and I will await for someone from education to call in and clarify that.
All right.
Thank you very much, and you
I'll
continue
keep
to
you
stay safe.
posted.
You continue to stay safe, okay?
Yeah, okay, all right, Eric.
Thank you very much. Have a good night. We have another call online. Good evening. You're on the mark.
Good evening, Honorable Minister. How are you?
I am doing well, despite the circumstances. And how are you doing?
I'm okay, thank you.
Great.
Yes, I'm calling to personally thank you for the work you've been doing
Thank
during
you.
this crisis. And not only you, but your office. And I am most grateful.
Thank you.
I pray that more people would be like you. And we would have a marvelous island to live on. Thanks again, and you have a good night.
Thank you so very much. I recognize his voice. Thank you. Have a good night, and God bless you.
Thank you, sir.
Take care. Thanks for your kind words.
Okay, you're welcome.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Do we have another call online? Okay, before we get our another caller, I just want to highlight two little things that the Premier would have mentioned in his statement a while ago. And the two little things I just want to highlight, there's quite a lot of things that I can highlight, but there are two little things I just want to highlight in that, that the ministers at our virtual cabinet meeting that we had yesterday, the ministers, all the ministers of the Nevis Island administration have agreed to take a 10% salary cut for 3 months. Let me say that again. All the ministers of the Nevis Island administration have agreed to take a 10% salary cut, which means we are in this thing together. We are with you. And not only that, let me also highlight that the Premier, the Honorable Mark Brantley, he said it in a very nice way in the address. He said that he has foregone his salary from the Nevis Island administration. Let me say that in simpler terms. He did not take a salary, even though he has been working so hard. Hardly anybody works for free these days, but the Premier is working for free at the moment. He did not take a salary. He is a leader among leaders. And that is why I have said from the top of the show that he has provided astute and exemplary leadership, irrespective of what is happening. I don't think we have heard that from any other leader from the region. The Premier of Nevis is not taking a salary, even though he's working so hard. He's working overtime. He's under pressure. But he has decided, listen, I'm going to leave my salary in the coffers of the Nevis Island administration because we are going through some hard times. We are going through some hardship. And so I want to salute the stellar leadership of the Honorable Mark Brantley. Irrespective of what you have to say about him, this leadership is exemplary. And it comes with the territory because, of course, as I said, we are going through some hardship. We are going through some challenging times. And he have decided to respond in this exceptional way of not taking his salary. Let's go back to the lines. You're on the mark. Good evening.
Yeah, hello, good evening, Andy Mark.
How are you doing?
Hello, Honorable Mark, Barnes and Chai, and Nana, and my cousin Amaral Weeks, and the Stanley family.
Yes.
And good program.
Thank-
And I was calling on his show.
Yes, I know that.
Hearing on it. So you thank you for hosting the show.
Thank you, darling. And he's listening, so I'm sure he's hearing you.
He said about helping Nevis.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. I hope when people don't hear help us too.
All right, my darling. Thank you very much. And you have a good night and continue to stay
Yeah,
safe.
all right.
All right. Do we have another caller? Yes. You're on the mark. You're live and on the mark. Good evening.
My good friend,
Good evening.
good evening, sir.
How are you doing?
I'm giving thanks.
Fantastic.
I heard you spoke something there a while ago, and I lay down on that bed today,
Uh-huh.
and I listened to the pastor from the Seventh-day Adventist Church,
Yes.
and my mind tells me that the premier would have done the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I just call him to say my thought was very right.
I didn't hear that.
I said my premier.
Yes.
So I listened to the pastor of the Seventh-day Adventist Church,
Yes.
and for the contribution that he had made.
Yes.
My mind, I lay down here, listen, and I lay down on my bed and I say, I know my premier would do something about that.
Yes.
And thank God he's not here alone. He's everybody on board.
Oh, we are all on board. We are in
All
this
of us
together.
is in
We
this
are
together,
in this
and-
together.
Yeah. I really appreciate that.
Thank you very
have a
much.
Good night, and God bless all of us.
Thank you so very much. God bless you and continue to stay
Bless.
safe. Let's go back to the lines. You are live and on the map. Good evening.
Blessed evening, Brother Evelyn. How are you?
I am doing
great.
great.
And Nevis and the entire Federation.
I am
calling
doing
from
great.
New York, Brother Nabo.
Fantastic. How is New York tonight?
Oh, man, it's still a ghost storm, but, you know, we are doing what we can.
Mm-hmm.
Just, you know, staying safe, staying healthy, staying focused,
Mm-hmm.
and strong.
You guys are getting a terribly hard hit up there, man.
Yes, brother, yes, man. Listen, I know of two persons was, you know, very close to me. Brother from up here, from the Nation of Islam, the
Mhm.
minister at Mosque number 7.
Yes.
I'm not a Muslim, but we used to get along real good. But I've
Mhm.
seen him for about over 10 years. And he died from the virus.
Wow.
Yes, and a brother from Jamaica.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, his son and my youngest son used to go Catholic school together.
Okay.
He died too, you know. So two brothers, man. But everyone is hit by this thing, brother. But you know, the people in the Federation, so far so good, and I hope it continue like that. Not even just in the Federation, the entire world, brother. But we got to deal at home first, you know? And let me commend this administration. They're doing a good job, but the people must comply what the administration says.
Yes, of course.
Stay home, stay home.
You're right.
Yes, and they say wear a mask in public, you wear a mask in public.
Indeed.
Everything. Yes, and everything will go thing, and, you know, goes well. But so far, so good. And let me say, Colin, you know, let me just say, commend all the frontline workers, the nurses, the doctors, the defense force, the policemen and women, and everyone else. All the essential workers. And, you know, you have some ordinary people too who are not essential workers, but they do the best too.
Of course.
And all. What you said, brother?
I say, of course, yes. So everybody's rising to the challenge.
Yeah, yes. And those who have donated,
Yes.
especially, you know, poor people who would donate $1,000 or the meager salaries and everything. So let me commend all of those people also. And let me commend Prime Minister. I'm getting ahead of myself. I show off what about man to be the next Prime Minister when Dr. Harris is all done. But not for another time, beloved. You know what? Let me comment Brother Mark Bradley. You know, for taking, you know what I mean, not taking his salary, you know, as the Premier of Nevis. That is good. And let me call on those in the federal government, the others, from the Prime Minister on down. I would like to see them take, you know, just take 75% of their salary. And when I say salary, I mean the total salary, the ministerial position, and everything, the total monthly salary. Take a cut, 25%, for at least 3 months, and then we see where we go from there. They can afford it. I mean, they're not rich brothers and sisters, but they can afford it. They can afford it. So tonight, I'm calling on all those in the federal, but Mark Bradley wouldn't be hard on him. You know, I will give, like, you know, a pass on that, because he already did his part in the island administration. So, Brother Marvani, that will be up to him. But all the others, take a pay deduction of 25% for the next 3 months. Because, they're working, but this is time when you got to show your patriotism. They're doing it, but more. See, when it's glorious times, you don't know who is who. But when there's hard times, you know who are your brothers and who are your sisters, who are your friends and who are your enemies. So I'm calling on them again to take a pay cut, 25% for the next 3 months. Brothers, continue doing the great work.
Thank you very much.
Brother Try Live, but I've not heard him for a long while. How is he doing?
Try is doing well. We are all doing well. We are under a lot of pressure. We have a lot of work to do.
That brother keep it tuned, It's what's going on.
Of course.
And your brothers, man, been doing, and the sister too, Sister Williams.
Yes.
I've been doing a great job of Nevis, the entire federation. But let me say, man, we are a one people, because my maternal paternal grandparents from Nevis and my maternal grandparents from St. Kitts.
Wow. Well, St. Kitts and Nevis is always one. You can't change that.
One people,
you can't
brother.
change that. Never can.
Never can change that, man. That run in our DNA and they're going to stay forever.
All the time.
Yes, my beloved brother. So, brother, you keep on doing the great work.
Thank you very much.
I continue to listen. Pan-Africanism, our
Thanks,
One love, beloved.
thanks for the call, and God bless. Continue to stay safe. Continue to stay safe in New York. All the best.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. That's one of our callers, who very religious callers who calls every week. Let's go back to the lines. You're live and on the mark.
Yeah, good evening.
Good evening.
This Vern is the call from St. Croix, just Virgin Island.
Great to hear St. Croix in the house.
Yeah, man. And first thing I want to pick up my auntie who make 86 today, which is Nadi Walwin.
Okay, that's my darling too.
Plenty blessing. I should have my auntie for life, last auntie living right now.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I'm out of Brown Hill, from Brown Hill.
Okay. How is St. Croix?
Well, St. Croix good as this present moment. We have no lot of curfew, but many of the bars, them closed down, the restaurant, them, and we just own back up the beach on Monday. So,
okay.
But otherwise, everything going smoothly. Not a lot of work we got, but everything running smooth at this present moment.
Good. Well, I hope you guys are staying safe and doing what you got to do.
But overall, we only have 3 deaths for the 3 Virgin Islands.
Only?
3 islands.
You're saying only?
Yeah,
but 3 is a lot.
Only just 3 alone.
3 is a lot still.
3 alone.
3 is a lot.
Huh?
3 is still a lot.
Well, yeah, we understand that.
Yes.
They went away and get caught up there to come back, and I wasn't.
Okay. Okay. Well, I hope you all won't have any more. Pardon me?
We hope so too, because right now it's not easy, man. You guys stay at this time.
Of course. Of course.
Yeah, but everything going good, and I hope, when I like to come home, and I hope this corona go, because I have my last and the life kicking, and that's why I'm big shop. I watch Test strong. She could live 100, and that'd be good for me. I watch the strong because I want to be there. The Lord, when the Lord time come out, the one land come for you right now. But when the time come, I want to be there in numbers. But I just want to pick up the Walwin family out of Brown Hill.
And now they're listening.
And my brother King Jabba. So I want to have like a blessing and hold on Nevis, and I just stay strong and hold on to the curfew.
Oh, yes.
He will work out, and he will one day go over.
Of course. Of course.
Blessing and I just stay strong.
Thank you very, very much for calling, and say hello to all the folks in St. Croix. Continue to stay safe and stay blessed. And stay healthy.
Respect, man, all the way.
Thank you very much, brother. Take care. That was a caller from St. Croix. It's always good to hear our brothers and sisters from in the diaspora. Good evening. You're live and on the mark.
Yeah, good evening, Eric.
Good evening. How are you doing?
Great. I'm calling in to congratulate the Nevis Island administration for their sterling job in terms of leading from the front.
Thank you.
before I go any further, let me congratulate also the unity government, who I think they are also doing an excellent job protecting the Federation and putting meaningful programs in place to help assist the vulnerable and also the workers, small businesses, farmers, fishers, and the like. Now, the Nevis Island government in particular, I would like to salute them, because I know that they have taken a 10% cut in their salaries.
Yes.
And the Premier himself, I think, would have taken a 100% cut.
Yes.
Not only that, but he's providing some 3,000 plus, or maybe more.
$13,500 worth of food for the next 3 months.
For the next 3 months.
Yes.
And that's commendable. That's incredible. And whereas we have a few persons going around and spreading gloom and doom, and also trying to discredit the Nevis Island government, this is what the plans are for people. This is what the plans are for Nevis. And I think that you guys should be commended. And it's no mystery, because we all know, and the Honorable Premier usually refer to, whether playfully or, and I think he did it in a pure way too, referring to you guys as the Hebrew boys. And essentially, I think it aptly described and is, fitting.
Yes.
Yeah. So, as I say again, I would like to congratulate you guys and continue this sterling job. And, my support is behind you 100%, you guys.
Thank you.
Keep it up.
Thank you so very much.
Keep me safe.
Thank you.
God bless you.
Thank you. God bless you and stay safe. Thank you very much. Do we have another call online? Let's go back to the lines. You're live and on the mark. Good evening. Hello. Good evening. You're live and on the mark. Seems as though we lost that caller. All right. Well, listen, the lines are open. 869-469-1616, 869-469-1700. And you're listening to On The Mark. Today is the 22nd day of April in the year 2020. And, of course, we're here every Wednesday night on The Mark. It's a show that has been going for a very, very, very long time. Very popular show. And, of course, the show is rebroadcast on a Thursday at 1 p.m. So if you missed the show tonight, you can listen tomorrow. If you listening tonight, and I know a lot of persons listen on a Wednesday night, and they listen again for the rebroadcast on a Thursday, you can do so. A lot has been happening irrespective of the fact that we are in lockdown, and I must also mention here as well that the Honorable Mark Brantley has launched a jingle competition. And I understand that is creating a lot of interest. And so if there are persons out there with their jingles and you want to call in to drum up some support, because I understand that the deadline for the competition is tonight. And I understand that tomorrow is the day when the winners will be announced. So if you have a jingle and you want to drum up some support, you can feel free to call in tonight as well and sing your jingle here on The Mark. And I'm sure you'll be, because listen, remember, this is a show that everybody listens to in St. Kitts, Nevis, across the entire region and across the globe. We have another call online. Good evening, you're live and on The Mark.
Good evening, Minister Evelyn.
Good evening, sir. How are you doing?
How are you? I'm doing hopefully just as good as you're doing. You're sounding live and lively.
All right, sir.
Yes, I'm just calling in to add my voice to the program this evening. I will start by saying good night, of course, to all who are listening home and abroad, and also say good night and add my voice to the many voices that have lent their commendation to the emergency and health personnel who have been working tirelessly to ensure that we are safe here on the island of Nevis. It is not an easy job, and it's not an easy task, but of course, with the commitment that we have seen over the last month and a half, almost 2 months, I believe that we'll be in good standing when it's all said and done. The numbers themselves are very encouraging in that we have had just a few cases thus far here on the island of Nevis, or in the Federation, I must say. but more particularly Nevis. So it means that the healthcare system has been, the health personnel, who are involved in our healthcare have been doing a marvelous job, and we want to continue to encourage them. All of the persons who are on the task force, Dr. Nisbet, and I believe the Premier would have laid it out best in terms of how he would have done. So most times I try not to repeat some of these things because, of course, once it comes from the Premier, of course, we just fall in line accordingly. And all we can say is yes to it in terms of saying that we certainly concur with what he would have to say from time to time. Minister Evelyn, earlier you would have played the speech made by the Premier sometime earlier today, and he would have laid out quite a number of things, among which you did highlight the fact that the ministers of the Nevis Island administration would be taking a 10% pay cut for the next 3 months. I was saying 3 months and beyond if it has to be, but of course we start with the first 3 months, and if we have to go beyond that, we certainly would. This is not the first time, though. I don't think you were you were not, I wouldn't say you were not, Minister Evelyn, when we came into government back in 2013, and we took an instant 10% pay cut at that point in time as well. And it was as a result of the financial circumstances of the NIA at that point in time. Even before we got into government, we understood what we were going to meet, and that is why we agreed to take in a 10% pay cut then, and we are doing so again in these circumstances. So once we encounter trials and tribulations and these sort of circumstances, as ministers and leaders are here on the island of Nevis, we must set the premise and set the standard by which we will operate. And I do believe that we are doing the right thing, and I want to commend all of us. I say all of us because I'm included.
Yes.
And all of the persons out there who have done or intend to do anything to help this island recover from the current crisis that we find ourselves in. I know things are hard with everyone. Things are undoubtedly difficult in many ways, but of course, I did make what I believe was a simple but profound statement on Saturday, and that is, if we are divided at this point in time, we will fail in our effort to rescue this island from this crisis. But united, we'll certainly sail through all of these rough seas that we are currently sailing, and then sail into some calmer waters when the time comes. But our effort now will determine how quickly we recover and how well we recover over the next short to medium to long term, because the impact of this particular crisis will not be something that we'll overcome in 6 months. I don't even think we'll overcome this in a year. When I say overcome, I am speaking of the impact itself, the economic impact, the social impact, the physical scars that will be left. Of course, it will linger for a long time to come, but we have to be united in our effort, and I'm certain we'll be fine at the end of it all. But Minister Evelyn, if you give me a minute or two,
of course, please.
Longer, you did.
Oh, go right ahead.
You did speak about the efforts being made in agriculture, and I believe that you would have articulated some of the incentives that we're offering and what the NIA itself is contributing towards the overall sustainability and improvement in agriculture over the next 6 months to a year at least. We look at this as our way of laying out a strategic plan over the short run, medium run, and the long term, or I should say short term, medium term, and long term. But of course, one has to start with the short term first, so that the impact you have in the short run will certainly determine how you go to the next stage and the next phase of our development in agriculture. Over the years, we have heard a lot of talk about agriculture being one of the major pillars of our development, but the actual effort that has been exerted has not always been consistent with what we have been saying. So we are saying now that more than ever, we are seeing that agriculture has to be the mainstay in terms of ensuring that we can feed ourselves over the next year, over the next 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, and beyond. So it means then the Nevis Island administration has come up with, I believe, with what we feel is the plan moving forward. It is a strategic plan which we have always been working towards, but no more than ever it is important for us to implement and to ensure there are results had from these plans that we are implementing. Of course, in the short run, as I said before, the short term, we'll have to make sure that we are providing our farmers with the seeds and seedlings that you would have mentioned before, and also ensuring that, of course, they have access to free water. And
Yes.
the labor, of course, is important, and that is why the Department of Agriculture has been working with our farmers, and in some cases providing free labor to ensure that the crops are planted and taken care of, and indeed when the time comes to reap, then of course we're reaping. The monkey issue and the stray animals and dog issue has been a perennial problem here on the island of Nevis. Of course, we have to, at some point in the very near future, probably go to the assembly to enforce some of the things that we need to enforce to ensure that we are curtailing all of these roaming animals that are creating havoc here on the island of Nevis and are impacting our farmers negatively in terms of them straying into their farms and destroying their crops. So we'll be talking more about that as we go along, but people would have to be cognizant of the fact that if the effort is being made by our crop farmers, for example, to plant more and to have more for us to eat, then our livestock farmers themselves will have to be as responsible as well,
Yes.
or just as responsible to ensure that they are taking care of their animals and not having them roaming the streets or roaming people's farms and destroying their products. So it is a collective effort that we'll have to have moving forward. All of our farmers, livestock, crop farmers, and everyone would have to be on board to ensure that we are responsible and we are taking charge of our own affairs to ensure that everyone can see some success
Of
in
course.
these difficult times. But like I was saying, Eric, a strategic plan will have to be brought to the Nevisian public, and we're going to point out to the Nevisian public what we expect to see over the next year or 6 months to a year, 2 years to the next 5 years and beyond, whether it's in crop production, meaning increasing crop production. In livestock, we're looking at bringing in new genetics and bringing different breeds of animals to our livestock farmers. And also in poultry production, what we can do to improve poultry production, whether it is in the broiler section of it or even having more layers here on the island of Nevis and increasing egg production for when this island recovers and the demand is there. So I think I went all around this evening, Eric.
You did not go all around. You did what you had to do. It's
Well,
important.
when I say go all around, touched on a little bit of,
Okay.
of everything.
Yes,
You
you
know?
needed to. You needed to.
But I'm telling you, we have a plan to move agriculture forward.
Yes.
And some persons out there might be listening and saying, we've been hearing about plans, we've been here, but our plans can only be as effective as our farmers are in terms of them exerting the effort. And we will reciprocate that effort by providing whatever fencing material, whatever plant material, whatever other areas in agriculture that need assistance. It is our effort now as a government to move the resources into those areas, whether financially or otherwise. You've been around agriculture
Of
for a
course.
long time. And
Agriculture
you know
is still in my blood.
that. It's in your blood.
Still in my blood.
And you know, when you were the permanent secretary, we have always cried for more money and
Yes.
asked for more money, and we never.
It's
seem to
coming
get
this
it then.
time.
But it seems like we'll get it now because it is important that we exert some more financial resources into farming
Yes.
to ensure that we're getting back to backyard farming and also farming on a larger scale.
Mhm.
I think if I might say, I believe out of every bad situation, there is going to be some good that one can pull out of it. And why I say that is because I am anticipating that our people will go back to the ground and eat much more provisions,
Yes.
ground provision.
Mhm.
Because if we're asking people to, not people, but our farmers to plant more, and of course our people in terms of backyard gardening, then it means there'll be more produce and products here on the ground available to us. And we are hoping that our people and our beseeching our people to patronize our farmers.
Yes.
And of course, the point was made last week and before that our vendors themselves, who are getting products from the Department of Agriculture, or they're getting these local products, there are many expenses that they don't have to incur. Transportation is certainly one.
Because it's being delivered straight to them.
Transporting products from Miami all the way to Nevis, there is an exorbitant cost for that.
Right.
If you're getting products right out of the ground here in Nevis, it must be cheaper.
Of course.
It must be. And it should be cheaper for us to purchase here locally than if we're importing these items that we don't even know what is in them.
Indeed.
We don't even know how they're being produced. So I believe some good is going to come out of this particular crisis that we're in, whereby we'll go back to the ground and eat healthy once again, or continue to eat healthy in some regards, because there are some persons who are committed to eating their locally produced products.
Yes.
And I want to say that we can do it, and it can be done, it will be done, and it has to be done. So that is why I'm happy that we are going to be playing our part as a government to ensure that we can bring about the necessary changes that we are hoping for and anticipating in agriculture. Like I said, it was just for a few minutes, but I went on longer than I should have.
And I have to commend you, Deputy Premier, as the Minister of Agriculture as well, because as I said, agriculture is in my veins, will always be in my veins. I want to commend you and your team, the PSC Director, and all the other staff members at the Department of Agriculture for the really rising to the challenge at this point in time. They've been doing a marvelous job putting this program together, and I believe the farmers are responding in a very good way indeed. And I think that we have a good future ahead of us for agriculture, and I know the technology will continue to catch on. Of course, we know that we've been talking about greenhouse technology for some time now, and I believe the time is ripe now for more persons to go into that avenue. I visited Mackey's farm there at Rollins a few days ago, and fabulous, fantastic.
Yes.
I mean, the quality is exceptional. And I mean, when you see these things, they're comparable to what we get from overseas. Even better. And apart from the fact that we are getting this from the greenhouse as well, I mean, what is being produced in the land as well, the quality has been exceptional. And so I really want to commend the farmers at this time. I want to commend the technicians in the Department of Agriculture. I want to commend you as the minister for leading this challenge. And I believe that we will continue to go from strength to strength.
Yes. If I can just say, as you speak about locally produced stuff, I went to Best Buy sometime last week.
Yes.
And picked up some tomatoes, and on the label it said locally grown or local product or something like that. But it is, they were local tomatoes.
Yes.
And believe me, Eric, I brought them home and placed them on my counter there. And I've been taking up one now and then and eat it just like an apple.
Right.
And it was still firm and delicious, you know?
Yes.
So I want to tell the entire Division public to stick to your local products. And I want to also commend, as you would have done, the Permanent Secretary, Huey Sargent, the Director of Agriculture, Mr. Randy Elliott, and also the Assistant Director, Mr. Floyd Liebert, and the entire team there at the Department of Agriculture.
Yes.
Because they're the ones who are, we use the word frontline, but they're the ones who are out there beating the pavement and interacting with the farmers, and I think they're doing an excellent job. I want to commend them and all who work along with them, and of course, I want to also say that we would have procured the necessary equipment that are needed in these particular times.
Yes.
Meaning we have additional tractors, and we also have a backhoe. We have equipment that can be used to clean and clear any land out there to get persons going. I mean, these things don't happen overnight, eh?
Right.
These things requires planning, requires a certain level of consideration as well, in order to ensure that we have these equipment and all of the necessary infrastructure in place to get us to where we want to get to. So I want to say to the entire Division public, we are here to assist from the department standpoint, and we're also here to ensure that whatever challenges there are, that we are providing some answers and some relief in any regard that is necessary to make sure that we can accomplish what we have set out to accomplish.
Wonderful. And just before you go quickly, Deputy Premier, I just want to commend you as well publicly, because of course we know in the cabinet we work as a team, and I know Mr. Amri of Amri's Enterprises in St. Kitts would have donated some bread to Nevis. You would have jumped on board and said you're going to coordinate that effort. You have done a marvelous job in coordinating that effort. So we want to thank you for jumping so quickly out and said, well, listen, I'm gonna take on this. You did a great job.
Yes. Well, I also, in thanking Mr. Amri and his team there at Amri Bakery, I also want to thank Mr. Perkins, that we call him Plug Eye.
Yes.
His correct name is Vincent, but I think he goes by the name of Plug Eye since he has been a little child, so he loved that. Just like I like my nickname. You say Nevis is one of those places where nickname is a part of our culture.
Oh, indeed.
As Sandopi would have sung some years ago.
Yes.
But, well, his nickname is Plug Eye, and
yes.
he and his staff have risen to the occasion as well. The Captain Elvin Jeffers is the one who would have done all of the transportation of the bread from Bastia to Wally. Eric, I don't want to say what I told you earlier, but you understand where I'm going with this. But there are some persons who may not have gotten any bread over the last couple of days when we were distributing. We are still working to make sure we can perhaps, provide something to those households who didn't get. But I won't say anything publicly until we are able to roll that out and make sure it happens. But I want to thank everyone who have been a part of it, including the bus drivers who would have done the deliveries and the persons and personnel who were on board to ensure the distribution went well. In any event or any circumstances, we strive for perfection, but it does not always get to that point. So there were some persons who I understand did not get
that will always
right,
happen.
But we're going to try our best.
It's not intentional.
To see how we can. It's not intentional, of course, but it is what it is. But we'll try our best, yeah?
Thank you very much.
We want to thank everyone in advance for all of the contributions that they'll make moving forward. Keep in mind, whatever contribution you make is for the overall development and betterment and the overall rescuing of this island from the crisis that we certainly find ourselves in. So it will be to the benefit of all when it's all said and done.
Thank you very much, Deputy Premier.
Certainly my pleasure, and have a good night.
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot for calling, and of course I just want to endorse what the Deputy Premier said in terms of thanking Mr. Amri over in St. Kitts, and of course Plug Eye, Mr. Perkins, and all the bus drivers and the helpers. And I have to say that I tasted the bread, and the bread is really excellent. Thank you. Let's go back to the phone lines. Good evening, you're on the mark.
No COVID whole a terror for Sigita Nevis. About how tinky body be. Sigita Nevis, we go fight it hard, and then we gonna just sit down back in the yard.
I tell you. Sounds good. Well, the person did not identify himself, but that was a jingle. And as I mentioned a while ago, the Premier would have launched a jingle competition, which he himself is sponsoring. And persons are going wild with this jingle competition. And I understand the jingle competition ends tonight. The winners will be announced tomorrow. So listen, if you want to call in and get some support for your jingle, please do so. Good evening, you're live and on the mark. We lost that caller. All right, so someone would have just called in, and they sang. We have another caller line. Good evening, you're live and on the mark.
Yes. Good evening.
Good evening.
Yes, sir. I have a question. I just heard the Honorable Alexis Jeffers a moment ago.
Yes.
And my question pertaining to the agriculture producers is that. Let me first say that I was on the mark just in February. We were part of Black History Month.
Yes.
As a member of the One Love Rastafari movement.
Yes, sir.
And on that program, we were discussing agriculture.
Yes, I remember that program very well.
Yes, beautiful. And I really didn't envision that it would have come so soon. I know it would have come, but I didn't expect it so soon. But nevertheless, I am pleased with the agriculture department and the response they've been made and the plans they had prior. That put us in a fairly good standing. But we have a problem, and the problem is with the monkeys. as the manager for the agricultural produce for One Love, we have over in Newcastle a plot of sweet potatoes. And you wouldn't want to see how the monkey damaged it. Right now, I'm afraid we should have been reaping at this point in time.
Wow.
But there is nothing there, every single one.
Wow.
Monkey could just go and grab it. And that is due to the fact that we don't have anybody there on a consistent basis, on a daily basis. Because we all have our different farms and we all have our different work.
Of course.
However, fencing is a very critical component now. Did I hear the minister correctly in saying that fencing is available?
Well, I don't know if I can't recall everything he said, but I don't think that the department is providing any fencing. The fencing is not part of the package being provided by the Department of Agriculture. Fencing is extremely expensive. I think someone would have asked the Premier about fencing, I think it was on Sunday on his program, and fencing is not a part of, at least I would have outlined the package here from Agriculture earlier, and fencing is unfortunately not a part of that. As I said, fencing is pretty expensive, and so the Department of Agriculture, the Ministry, will not be able to meet you all the way. We're trying to meet you maybe half or 3/4 of the way, but fencing unfortunately is not a part of that package.
But you see, Eric, fencing is an expensive component, and we are focusing on food security.
Yes.
Right? That is the area that would be most needed by most farmers. Because it wouldn't make sense for you to plow up 2-3 acres of land and plant, and then when time comes to harvest, you can't harvest nothing. Instead of giving the seedling.
But not cutting you off though, but you were talking about the monkey being the major problem. But of course, even you fence with the monkeys, you'll need to put in an electric fence or something, because if you fence, if you do a proper fence, that is not going to keep the monkeys out.
Yes, I quite agree. But right, if I get some assistance with the fencing, then it will enable me to secure some shock fence. You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
There is where I would need that help.
But I can tell you though, I can also tell you though that I know I would have spent all of my work life in the civil service in agriculture. And as farmers, the Department of Agriculture, they provide certain incentives and certain concessions. So even though the department may not be able to provide you with the fencing wire, if you're going to source the fencing wire, for example, from overseas, you can get duty-free concession on the fencing wire. So at least that is still some relief for you.
I agree.
Okay?
Fair enough.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, I want to just finish by saying I would want to thank the administration, and in particular the Premier, and the gesture made by all the ministers.
Yes.
I think that's an excellent move. You set the example, and as leaders of our country, that is the right tone. Good move, positive move. I love it. I endorse it. Continue on the good work.
Thank you very much. You continue to stay safe and continue to stay blessed, continue to stay healthy, continue to eat those healthy foods.
Thank you very much.
God bless. Take care. Thank you very much for calling. Do we have another call online? Good evening. You're live on the Mark.
Good evening, Mr. Evelyn. How are you?
I am wonderful. How are you?
I'm fine. I'd like to congratulate you guys, the Navy's administration, and Mr. Brantley especially.
Thank you.
And you guys in the cabinet. And I want to congratulate the Prime Minister of the Federation for his prudent handling of the economy.
Yes.
It is good when you have somebody who take care of the money that he could, in times like these, is able to help those who need help. And instead of calling him the Minister of Finance, I'm going to call him the Chancellor of the Exchequer.
Wow. That's a huge name.
That sounds more up to, you know what I mean?
Yes, up to the times.
Yes, but it is really good to know that you have somebody who take care of the treasury.
Yes.
That could give people at least some help. Because I know, I'm telling you plain, if it was the other guy, these people would have got nothing at all. Nothing at all. And I am sure they know about it. They know, but they're still making noise, saying it's not enough, and they wouldn't have given nothing. I don't know what they want. But anyway, you, the whole federation, and you guys, you're doing an excellent job.
Thank you.
And I want you all to continue, and no matter what they say, they're not in control. You guys in control. Unity is in control. So they could say what they want from now until Judgment Morning. You guys continue the Prime Minister leading, and we will get there one way or the other. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. Thank you for your call. You stay safe, stay blessed. Good evening. Do we have another caller? No, we don't have a call online. Remember, the lines are open. It's on the mark for Wednesday, the 22nd day of April in the year 2020. And it's now just a little bit past 9:30, so we have probably another 28 minutes or so to go. And if you want to call in to lend your voice to the discussion here, of course, for the past couple of weeks, it has all been COVID-19. Who would have thought that we would be here for weeks discussing a pandemic, a worldwide pandemic that has shut down the entire world. Unbelievable. Do we have another call? No? All right. So I just want to, as we wait for the other calls, as I said, you want to call and lend your voice, 469-1616, 869-469-1700. I'm still hoping that someone from the Ministry of Education could call in and clarify the question that was asked earlier on with regards to CXC and where we are with CXC and what is going to be happening with the overseas exams, because there are still a lot of questions from the parents, from the students. Of course, we know that school has been suspended. School was due to reopen this past Monday. It has been suspended for 2 weeks in the first instance, and so we don't know what will happen down the road. We understand that they are using technology now for the students to stay at home. They would have gone home ever since the start of the Easter break with their packages to continue to do their work at home, and I understand that they're continuing that, and we don't know how long that will continue. But as I said, someone would have called and would have want something clarified with regards to CXC, and I'm hoping somebody from the Ministry of Education could call and make that clarification. As we await your calls, I just want to quickly highlight what we have been doing from the Department and the Ministry of Social Services, because of course we know that social services is an essential service, and I have to say here, kudos to my staff at the department. They've been doing a fabulous job over the past weeks. They've been there at the office every day. And I know what I'm saying because I'm at the office practically every day as well. And sometimes they're there at the office all day, ensuring that they respond to the numerous calls that have been coming in. And persons have not been only calling, persons have been coming in for assistance. And I must say that I'm proud of the staff, the director and her entire team for responding in such a wonderful way. Because as I said, the calls are numerous. And so what we continue to do from a social services standpoint, we continue to ensure that our meals program continues. Of course, we have a meals program that many of our elderly and many of our less fortunate in the society can benefit from. And of course, that is an island-wide program. I want to commend the cooks and of course commend those persons who are responsible for taking the meals out. And that has continued during the state of emergency. So even though you have a 24-hour lockdown, that meals program continues from social services. Apart from that, we have also facilitated our primary caregivers. A lot of our primary caregivers have to go out into the community to take care of the elderly. Some persons are sick, some persons are housebound, and they must get that daily care from their primary caregivers, whether to go in to give them their breakfast, lunch, and dinner, whether to have them bathed and so on, just to check in on them. And so our primary caregivers have been through the Department of Social Services, been able to get that permission. We are working with the police department to get the permission for our primary caregivers to be out in the community on a daily basis to ensure that those persons who absolutely must get that care are getting the care that they desperately need. And I want to commend the persons who have been out there in the community on the lockdown days, in the curfew days, to ensure that the persons who need the care are getting the care. We do have a caller online. Good evening, caller. You're live and on the mark.
Hi, Minister Evelyn. How are you doing?
I am doing great. How are you? It's good to hear you.
I'm well, thank you. I'm well. Thank you very much, first of all, for agreeing to host the show tonight. It's been a difficult road trying to provide the necessary leadership during an unprecedented era of COVID-19, and so I was very grateful to get a respite tonight, so thank you very much. I wanted to call and lend my voice, Minister Evelyn, to just congratulate the members of the Cabinet and the ministers of Cabinet. We would have met, and I know you didn't emphasize it, but in demonstration of our seriousness about social distancing, we're now meeting using technology.
I did.
Okay. Well,
I said we met virtually, yes.
Yes, but I think that that's important that we're now meeting virtually.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't mean that we are any less connected, but we understand that we must provide the necessary leadership and we must lead from in front. And I want to commend colleagues because that issue of the 10% salary deduction for the next 3 months for colleagues. I believe that the Honorable Alexis Jeffers, our Deputy Premier who called earlier, put it best because he will understand that this is the second time that he's taken a 10% salary cut. In my case, of course, I have since last month decided to forego my salary. But I just want to thank the colleagues and the ministers because it cannot be easy at a time when we know that the demands on ministers from their constituents and of course their own demands of their family and commitments, that those are significant and are not diminishing. In fact, for those of us who are elected representatives, and even for those who are not, we recognize that the demands from the community are significant and that resources sometimes have to be found to assist the most vulnerable among us.
Yes.
And that is why I was particularly pleased that we have also been able to marshal personal resources, and I want to emphasize that because this is not coming from government. These are personal resources to the tune of $13,500 per month for groceries that we hope to make available for the most vulnerable. And I issued a call as the Premier of Nevis to others out there who are able to contribute something to that fund, because our intent is to ensure that no family in Nevis goes hungry in this difficult period. You know, Minister Evelyn, we all talk about acquiring things, house and car and land and all of these things, and they're nice to have. And all of us are imbued with ambition, and we try to acquire and make ourselves better, particularly those of us, you know, you and I are from Hanley's Road, I'm from Scarborough, you're from a little further down, and we grew up
very
with
poor.
Very little.
Yes.
Very poor with very little.
Yes.
And, you know, the thing about it is that I believe this COVID-19 pandemic has taught us that all of that is but vanity. Because at the end of the day, what do people need? They need food.
Of course.
In their stomachs. You know, they need the basics to live. And we have to ensure that we provide those basics. And this virus, this crisis that this virus has caused, has really exposed to us that there are many in our community who are truly vulnerable. Many people who, despite the fact that they may even have a little job, are still living in a way that we would not like. And so I think that we, all of us who are in a position to help, ought to do what we can. And I'm grateful that we have been able to mobilize this additional $13,500 per month. I'm not sure how many families that will benefit, and the details of who can benefit will be revealed shortly. But I just wanted to emphasize that as well, because I think that in addition to foregoing some salary as a symbolic gesture to indicate to our people that we are all in this fight together, this additional resource that has been made available from personal resources is a tangible demonstration that no family on this island should go hungry. And I think that this is what, if I may be allowed, I'm not a preacher,
course.
but if I may be allowed to say, that I believe that is what God would require of us.
Yes.
That we do the best that we can for each other, that we become our brother's keeper and our sister's helper, and that we look around our community and see that if there was ever a time when Nevis needed us, it's now. And so I thank you for the reprieve tonight. I will be back on air on Sunday, God willing, again bringing updates. And I never, at this point, end any public discourse without paying homage and kudos and congratulations again to those on the front line. I believe that we have risen to the occasion and that our unsung heroes deserve our greatest commendation. Your staff, the staff of all the other departments, and of course the many people who stack in our supermarket shelves, who cleaning, who going out there collecting our garbage. So many people who are out on the front lines doing a marvelous job, and I would want to commend all of them. Not everybody can contribute $1, but we can contribute in terms of our time, our effort, and maybe our contribution is to call the elderly woman down the road, find out how she's doing.
Of course.
To call a neighbor, find out if he's okay. And so we must now more than ever band together. I've said it elsewhere, that only if we're united on this, we shall overcome. And so, Eric, thank you again, and I will give way because I'm sure others may want to call
Just before you leave, Premier, just before you leave, I just want to commend you again on your really astute, exemplary leadership, as we would say locally, in front of your face, behind your back. You have been doing a marvelous job as a Premier, and you have been leading exceptionally well. And of course, these are the times when your true colors really show. I mean, these are the times when we need the calm, measured leadership that you have been providing. And I think all of Nevis would be better off for the leadership that you're providing at this time that we so desperately need.
Well, Eric, thank you very much. I know coming from you, it means a lot to me. But remember that clearly I'm allowed to be out front and to provide this leadership because of a strong team that I have around me. And so I'm grateful because I could not ask for better support from this cabinet. We have our discussions, we have our deliberations, and at the end of the day, as you know, when I come to the public and I speak, it is because the cabinet has agreed and sanctioned from our benefits package, our own little stimulus package here in Nevis. We have sought to discuss these things, and I am grateful for the team. I think all the ministers, yourself, the Deputy Premier, Minister Brand, Minister Liburd, Minister Brandy Williams, our Cabinet Secretary, Mr. Truss, our legal advisor, Mrs. Helen Lewis, the entire cabinet has really and truly been a rock. I would say the Rock of Gibraltar. I would say you've been a rock of Brimstone Hill. I've really been supportive, and I think when you have a solid team that is supportive, that is pulling in the same direction, that it makes the role of leadership a lot easier. These are difficult times. I will not pretend. I will tell you that, I wake up at 3 in the morning sometimes wondering what next.
Yes.
Because this is unprecedented. There's no playbook. There's no manuscript. There's no manual that we can read. And so we continue to trust in God. And just the night before I called, I was in touch with a good friend of mine, Methodist preacher, who reminds me that the church community, and he in particular, that they've been praying for us.
Oh, yes.
And I think that too is significant, and that is why I took time in my speech today to thank them for their prayers, because I think God sees and knows, and we must rely heavily on Him rather than on our own understanding to get through this particular difficult period in our history. Thank you again, Eric.
Thank you very much, and it has been my pleasure hosting for you tonight.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you. That was Premier of Nevis, Honorable Mark Brantley. Of course, he's normally the regular host for On The Mark, but I'm sitting in tonight, and it has been a pleasure so far. Let's go back to the lines. You're live on The Mark. Good evening.
Good evening, Eric. How are you?
I am doing pretty good, and how are you doing?
Well, I'm doing great myself, thanks. Well, I just called to once again commend this government, this Mark Brantley-led government, on once again demonstrating that people do matter most. I mean, to take a peck out in this time when I know, because you and I have spoken
Yes.
quite often, this is Astro.
Yes, of course,
And you're
yeah.
telling me the challenge that you face, you know, with always having to busy for people, and at this present time have to take a pay cut, and decided to take a pay cut willingly
Yes.
because you are there to serve the people. And I couldn't allow tonight to pass without publicly calling and commending this government that I chose to support. This is exemplary leadership. I mean, as you said just a while ago, the Premier has been leading by example. I've never seen him led better than this. Crisis has really bring out the best out of him. I've said it to him personally that I'm truly impressed with what I'm seeing in him as a leader. I mean, this demonstrated why I had so much confidence in him way back in 2007 when I decided I was going to put NRP down and go with him on this journey. And I'm so happy that I decided to stay on that road with him, because in this crisis when we need a leader who understands and appreciates people, he has come to the fore and has demonstrated fully that he is not just about talk. People do matter most to him and his cabinet. So once again, I commend you, the Deputy Premier, Mr. Alexis Jeffers, Honorable Brandy Williams, Spencer Brand, my brother, Troy, my brother. I salute you guys and continue to serve the people with the high quality service that you have been giving.
And thank you very much, and thank you for the genuine support that you always provide to all of us.
No, you're welcome, my brother.
Thank you. God bless you. Continue to stay safe, you and the family.
Yes, thanks.
All right. Do we have another call online? No, not yet. All right. So I just before I broke there, we were talking about, we do have a call online. Good evening. Let's go back to the phone lines. You're live and on the mark. Hello.
Hello, Minister Evelyn. Good evening.
Good evening. How are you?
Good. I'm really happy that I got through. I've been trying for a while.
Okay.
I wanted to thank you in particular for the excellent job you've been doing in social services.
Thank you.
Following that. I've been following a lot that's happening in the Caribbean. I'm calling from upstate New York.
Great. Nice to have you.
That's been happening in the Caribbean, and I think that in our little island there has been exemplary leadership, to use your language. I agree entirely. And I think that what has been happening is a model for what can take place in so many other places.
Yes.
In the Caribbean, and Lord knows in America. If we want to see how not to deal with this crisis, we just have to look at the United States of America.
I know.
I think one of the things that's happening there that's really, really amazing is how, at least in Nevis, how politicians in the leadership of the party coming together in the CCM.
Yes.
And the sacrifices that are being made. And I don't say this because it's a stroking of the ego and say, well, you know, the Prime Minister, the Premier, sorry, has taken, has forfeited his salary, and the ministers have taken 10%, and this is really incredible. I do believe it's incredible, and I do believe that it's a sacrifice, because I don't think it's just about affordability.
Yes.
Some people can afford more than others. I don't agree with the caller that I heard earlier who said that they should give 25%. I think that it's a hard time for everybody,
It is.
relatively speaking, where people are located on the spectrum of affordability.
Right.
So whatever one gives, whatever one commits, I think it's an amazing, really an amazing kind of contribution. I also want to say that that we should, I agree with you, that we should thank the workers on the front line.
Yes.
This is where we see the real sacrifices taking place to keep things together and to keep things, you know, manageable. I imagine it must be very hard for the island administration.
It is.
So I am just saying that I'm calling to say that I'm really proud of our little island and what is happening, because I'm following across the Caribbean, and in some places it does not look good.
Right.
One of the things I want to point out as well is that we have an excellent track record in tracing in the Caribbean. In other words, when people are tested,
Yes.
how we follow them, how we see where they are, and that is something that is not in the U.S. up to now. So testing is not widespread, and tracing is virtually unknown. and not really being practiced.
And who would have thought that we would be leading the U.S.?
Yeah, well, I don't want to be particularly sarcastic, but right now that's not hard. But when we look at other countries in the world, we can see real leadership that we are seeing in St. Kitts and Nevis in particular, since this is our show about our little island.
Yes.
That there's real leadership, and we really need to be grateful for that. One thing I want to ask, and that is, when the United States opens up, has there been discussion about the possibility of what this could mean? Many of us have been talking about it here, what it would mean for the Caribbean. Because when they open up the U.S., it means the Caribbean may open up again. What kind of plans do we have in place? For example, will we say that people who are coming in from U.S., Britain, or wherever, to come in with some proof of a test that was recently done in the last week before they arrive? I'm just asking because this is a virus that seems to be pretty tenacious.
Yes.
And now many medical professionals are concerned about a resurgence, a bounce back, or, not having gotten rid of it completely. What plans do we have in place for when things open up here, what the impact could be there?
Well, the thing is, even though the U.S. have been saying that they're opening up, I know some states have been following the news quite often, and I know some states say they're going to be opening up. Now, even though they're going to be opening up, and that does not necessarily mean that we're going to be opening up here in the Caribbean. I think there is the OECS leaders would have met virtually, and they have a plan where opening up is concerned. I'm not sure exactly what are the details of that plan, but even the U.S. will be opening up. That does not mean that we will be opening up. Of course, we have to tread very carefully. This is a very strange virus. And we are going to be as cautious as possible in the Caribbean. We have been fortunate here in St. Kitts, Nevis, and the rest of the region in terms of the number of cases and the number of deaths. And we do not want to risk anything. So irrespective of what is going on in the U.S., I think the U.S. needs to look to the Caribbean now for leadership and for example. And so even though they may be opening up, that doesn't mean that we are going to be following suit. We have to ensure that we do things the correct way here in the Federation and in the region to safeguard ourselves and to safeguard our population.
Well, that's good to hear. I know that the OECS has been talking about it.
Yes.
I have had some insight into what those discussions look like. I tell you that I am particularly concerned because I come to the Caribbean regularly.
Yes.
Number of countries. I come regularly. And I would be coming this summer, in fact, as soon as possible. And so that's one of the reasons I'm asking the question. It's like, what's going to happen? Are they going to quarantine?
We are treading carefully, and of course, our health officials, they have been very proactive, and of course, they will give us the recommendations which we will follow. And as I said, we're going to be very, very cautious in terms of when we open up. There hasn't been any talk of opening up anyway in terms of opening up our borders.
Right.
And so I don't think we're going to open up, and when we do, we will take the necessary precautions because we do not want what we are seeing happening in the U.S. to happen here. We cannot afford it anyway.
Definitely can't.
Yes.
Well, thank you again, and again I commend you on your job in your ministry because I can only imagine, but I imagine that it must be one of the biggest challenges social services
to
monitor and maneuver everything at the moment.
Yes.
So thank you again.
Thank you so very much for your wonderful comments. Much appreciated. And you continue to stay safe and have a wonderful evening. God bless.
You too.
Thanks so much. Do we have another caller online? No, we don't have a caller. Well, time is actually running out. We just have another 6.5 minutes to go before 10 o'clock. Of course, it's the On The Mark show. It's the 22nd day of April. 2020. And of course, for tonight and for all of the past on the marks for the past few weeks, we have been discussing the COVID-19, and I was speaking a little bit about social services. I want to remind folks as well that apart from the fact that we try to do our best in terms of continuing our meals program, facilitating our primary caregivers, we are also ensuring that you stay stable mentally, and we do have some counselors. I'm going to get back to that. We have a caller holding. Good evening, caller. You're live and on the mark.
Good evening, Eric.
Good evening.
I want to call and congratulate you guys on the work that you are doing.
Thank you.
You're doing well. Government is doing a wonderful job. You all, I mean, you all the talk and talk all the time, but not mean people suffering. At least you guys are putting out things out there that people could access.
Yes.
I mean, you're looking after people,
yes,
which is a good thing. And I mean, and I'm very proud of the way you all are doing it.
Thank you very much.
Very proud of that. So
thanks. Thanks a lot. Stay safe. God bless. Thank you very much. Do we have another caller online? No. So I was saying that we want persons to remain mentally stable as well. And so we have our counselors who are available via phone, via if you want to call, if you want to text, if you want to WhatsApp. Let me just give those numbers: 664-7269 or 665-9565. Those are our counselors who are available in social services. And in case you want to reach social services for general inquiries, you can call 665-2501 or 664-9670. And while I'm on social services, I want to stick a pin here and say thanks, a very hearty thank you to SL Hospitals and Company Limited. Of course, they are partnering with social services. They would have given $10,000 worth of groceries. And of course, we want to thank SL Hospitals and Company Limited in particular, the manager here in Nevis, Mr. Oscar Walters, and his entire team. Thank you very much. And we also want to say thanks to the Republic Bank. They would have given some funds as well. I think it's $2,500. Of course, we have been able to utilize that from social services as well because, of course, as I said, we have been overwhelmed with calls over the past couple of weeks. And we just want to let the folks in Nevis know that social services, we are with you and we are staying with you. We are giving you that reassurance that we are with you and we are staying with you throughout this crisis. This is something that we must weather together. As we are coming to the wrapping up stages of the program, I just want to say a word to the persons who would have tested positive. I did it in the assembly in Parliament on Saturday. I'm going to do it again. I just want to say to those of you who would have tested positive to remain strong. Keep the faith. We just want you to know that we are with you in this. We are here with you. And as I say that, I also want to say as well to persons in St. Kitts and Nevis, please, this is not a time to stigmatize anybody. This is not a time to discriminate. This is a time for us to come together. And I'm just sending the message again that please, when persons are tested positive, there's no need to be sending around anybody's name. There's no need to be sending around anybody's photograph via social media. Let us put ourselves in other person's shoes. Let us give empathy, because if it was you, you would not have wanted that. When you hear there's a confirmed case, instead of asking who is it, you know what you need to do? You need to get down on your knees and pray. Pray for the person who have been confirmed with positive, as a positive case. So we need to give as much support as we possibly can. And of course, I want to continue and I want to just join with the Honorable Mark Brantley as well in saying a very hearty thank you to our frontline people who have been there. Of course, the COVID task force, Dr. Judy Nisbet, Mr. Brian Dye, all of the other members of that task force, and to all our frontline people in health, the security forces, social services, water, electricity, garbage collection, the supermarkets, the banks, the pharmacies, the gas station, our church leaders who are holding us up in prayer, and we want you all to continue to hold us up in prayer. And of course, as we are wrapping up, I just want to encourage persons, let us continue to do what we have to do. Let us continue to heed the warning of our experts. Let's continue with the social distancing. Let us continue with our personal hygiene, the hand washing. That is very important. Let us stay home when we are asked to do so. Let us wear the mask when we are in public. I'm not wearing a mask tonight. I do it when I'm in public. I'm far away from my good friend Melissa. So we are much more than 6 feet apart. I'm the only one here in this studio, so there was no need for me to wear the mask tonight. But I just want us all, let us do this together. Our mantra should be throughout this pandemic, throughout this crisis, is that we will do it together. And I just want to remind you that your Karen government, we are with you through this. We will stay with you through this. But you as members of the public, this pandemic should bring out the absolute best in us and not the worst. And as I say that, I'm going to plead with you again to please stop the fake and the false news. This is not the time for that. Please, let's stop the fake and the false news on social media. Let us try to build the people up, because the false and the fake news, all it can do is to break people down. So I want to thank all those who would have called in. And of course, we want to just say once again, from here, from this rostrum, and as usual, we say to you that we are with you. Let us do this together. And together, we will come out the winners. As I said in the promo, COVID-19, we will have the last word. We are going to win this battle. May God continue to bless you, continue to stay safe, continue to stay blessed, continue to stay healthy. And from On The Mark, it has been my pleasure hosting tonight. God bless you. And of course, please listen again tomorrow for the repeat. Thank you, God bless you, and good night.
The views and opinions expressed on the preceding program were solely those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Nevis Broadcasting Company Limited or its